Welcome, everybody. This is today. Well, hi, everybody. My name is Tony Morrow, and this is our first tactical session. Tactical session being the session, the time that we are going to work together and plan out the turn for the next little while. I prepared a little something for you. Let's see how you like this. All right, everybody, welcome to our very first tactical session. What are tactical sessions? Well, they are the time which we will work together and plan out the next turn. So, for example, in yesterday's live stream, I talked to you about the fact that we had received the turn back up to turn 30. So now we are going to plan the next 10 turns, turn 31 to 40, and then see how it goes. For a quick recap, let's take you to the map so that you can see where we're at. Here we go. So as you can see, again, here on the map, let me zoom in so you can get the most out of what we're looking at. So as we discussed in our last live stream, we had a wormhole that was down here in Papa 17. Papa 17, I'll just say Papa 17, it's easier. So now we're left with two. We have a gravity well in Quebec 16, and we have a two-way wormhole in Oscar 15. I currently have a cruiser there just to, make sure nothing just pops through. And the R&D team is there doing R&D or research on that particular wormhole. That's where we're at. As a reminder, we've got these E1Ts. We talked about that in our last live stream. E1Ts are these sort of mini tugs, transports. So they can operate like a tug. And the trick that we're using them for is to create a temporary supply point, and then we can strategically move convoys, which you can see here in the bottom corner. We'll finish doing what they do, and then they can strategically move from that location to where the E1T is. So it just allows us to move stuff around the map a little faster and more efficiently. Let's zoom out real quick so you can take a look at what the entirety of the map looks like. So once again, this whole map, we're looking at all this through a program called Vassal. And as you can see, this whole thing is a hexagon. You can see that we are in the top sort of right-hand corner here. We have that wormhole that we discovered and a ship kind of making its way down, discovering stuff. And then this is the one in the bottom here is the output, or where the gravity well, where the exit to the gravity well is. So we went through that gravity well, popped out here, and so that's where we are. We have two ships kind of in this vicinity. So that's where we're at. Let's move to the spreadsheet so that you can see what's happened up to now. So quick little recap here. I'll zoom in so you can see this a little bit better. So quick little recap here. So we are currently at peace. At the very top, we have the status of where we're at economically. So when you're at peace, you make 50% of the total income that you can make in any one turn. So we have a total of 26 at the beginning of turn 31. We have 26.5 EP, or economic points, or money basically, that we have coming in. And therefore we chop that in half, and it turns out to be 13.25. Now, a couple little marks here. So as you can see here, there's a little note here. There was a slave riot on one of our planets, which destroyed a base, basically a group of soldiers that we had down there on the base that provide defense. And this is talking about one of our, Cadrak's burgeoning manufacturing of ship parts increases it into a developing planet, which means if we go back into the capital system, I will show you that right here, right now. Klingon. Capital. You can see that we have 3 planets in our capital system. We have our homeworld, which produces 10 economic points. We have Kangor and Cadrak. Now, when we started the game, this was a developing planet, or a minor planet, and this was a colony. Now, because the colony, according to the spreadsheet, because the colony is doing what it's doing, it has grown into a developing planet. There are 5 stages of planets, working their way up to a major planet. And so this has gone from basically step 1 to step 2. Not much has changed from our perspective, or what things that we need to be thinking about. But in another live stream, we will go into an in-depth discussion around the economics of this game. For the purposes of today, though, we're just talking about the basic strategy and turn for what we're going to do. So let's go back a couple turns and see what we have been doing. So you can see here in turn, so I'm going to go by turn number, which at the very top here, you can see 26 going up to 31. They are broken into years, 2 halves of a year, or 2 halves of the seasons. So we have a fall and a spring. So when you see a 78F, that's 78 fall, 79S, 79 spring. So that's what that looks like. But I'll be referring to it in turns because it'll just be easier to follow. So as we go into turn 26, you'll see that in that turn we built one of these E1Ts, which is these transport ships that we're talking about, and an E1, basically small frigate. And as well, there we built a slipway, or basically an E1 slipway. In the next turn, building a base in Papa 18, then building another slipway as well as another E1. Here we started construction on another base station. Keeping in mind, it takes 2 turns to complete the construction of one of these bases there, and we have to alternate them. We can't have a base on the technology as of right now. The limitation is one convoy can only, basically a convoy can be doing convoy type duties at any one time, meaning that only one convoy can build anything at any one time. So one will build one over 2 turns, and then as it moves on the end, after it's built its base and it needs to move to build the next one, while it's moving, the next convoy will already be in place and will start building. And then on turn 30, what did we do? We upgraded. So one of the big milestones of that turn, and you'll see it down here, is, oh, great, we got tugs. Nice. Okay, so in turn 29, we basically got Y-Tech. Y-Tech is we talked about W and then Y. So W was, for example, when you look at the map, and I'll go back here for a second, and we zoom in, you can see that, for example, we have an F3, we have a D3, and an E1. So with the exception of the E's, the 3 basically talks about the tech level. So you can look at the destroyers, which are the F's, the cruisers, which are the D's. When you see 3, that's W tech. So we're going to be able to build the next level up, or the next tech level up, and that's good. So new technologies come in, the Y, and when we look at this, these are the ships that are now available to us. So we have a D4, an F4, an F4J, which is the penal ship, something we talked about in a previous episode, and then the E2. So the E2 is just the next iteration, or the next tech up version of the frigate, or the E. And then I can start, on that turn, I discovered or explored the wormhole, and then we started applying wormhole research and development to that. Also a couple of other key notes here. These are some technologies that were discovered in that turn. Strategic distance is important because what that means is that I can move ships 1.5 times their normal distance in a strategic move. So for example, Y ships, which we just got, can move 4 hexes, which means that if I'm strat moving them or strategically moving them, they can move 6. 1.5 times what they normally would move. Now that's going to be useful because when you build them in the turn that you build them, they get a free strat move, free strategic move, so they can move quickly. So that's good. And then here's the kicker: tugs. Now tugs are great because tugs we're not restricted on the convoy restriction about only doing one convoy duty at a time, as in like one convoy can build one thing at a time, where we're not restricted with that or by that with tugs. Once we have tugs, we can move faster and we can build sooner. So that's an incredible thing. Now, let's go back up here. So we have 26.5, or basically 13.5 economic points or dollars that we can use in any one turn. One of the things that's important to note is that we can go into deficit spending over the course when we're at peace, but we can only go up to we can technically go up to 13.25. I usually try and keep it somewhere between -5 and -10. And the reason why we go into negative ever so slightly is because you cannot carry over a balance in peacetime, meaning that you can't save up money. So therefore, the only real option is to use it or lose it. So you got to spend as much as you can in the time that you have it, and then you can reap the benefits and rewards of that going forward. Now, before we go into what's called the MSIT, or we'll call it the shopping list of ships, let's go to research and development. So as you can see here, we have been researching something called supply. Now, supply, as we've talked about before in the last live stream, supply is one of those things when it comes to the range at which from every supply point. So, for example, one of those YBSs, those bases, the distance, and I'll illustrate it here for you. The distance from a ship, from a base out of 3 hexes right now is what my current, or the Klingon current supply is. So based on what you can see here, this is the range out to which ships can travel, right? Makes sense? And as you can see here, we're currently working together with these large exploration freighters, and they're working towards kind of the peak up here. So it'll be important to start building supply points in this vicinity up north so that we can keep the efficiency of moving these guys further and further towards the edge. And then, of course, once we get to the very edge of the galaxy, so to speak, this is the edge of the map, then we can start not worrying about moving in that direction. We can just move out sort of laterally. And yeah, so that's what that looks like. All right, back to R&D. So here we go. We got supply that we've been researching, and again, the wormhole. So right off the top, without making any significant changes, these are the technologies that I would like to continue until turn 40. So copy and paste. Goodness gracious. And that takes us to turn 40. When we go back to the spreadsheet here, you will see that in this research and development row, you can see that the 2 economic points allocated for the research and development has been allocated all the way to turn 40. That's what we want. As we start making more money, and money is, or economic points coming in, and we want to reallocate money to research and development, for example, researching MTech, which will be very important going forward, it will be very important to get that earlier rather than later. But at this early stage, the primary focus of right now strategically is expansion. So I'm just going to take a quick break here and back. There we are. So I'm going to take a quick look here at the chat just to see how we're doing. Okay, so don't see any chat. That's good. Just want to check. All right, so back on the attack. Here we go. Back to the spreadsheet. So let's see if I can do it this way. That's not going to work. All right, desktop capture it is. All right, let me show you the shopping. Let me show you the shopping list for ships and map out exactly what we're going to buy and what, or sorry, rather when. That is not the screen I wanted. There we go. Here we go. So as we can see here in turn 31, we have, so turn 31, important to note, is a spring year. What does that mean? So when we go over to the construction rows, you can see there is a row here and a row here. And there is a spring and a fall. Let me zoom in so it's a little easier for you to see. So you can see a spring and a fall. And in that spring and fall, you can see D4, F4, and 3E1. So the D4 and the F4 are the Y-era slipways that I have built or upgraded, which was done here in turn 30. And there are 3 slipways which are still at the W, or in this case, the early 1 level tech for E1s as opposed to E2s. So that's an earlier level of tech. In order to upgrade a slipway from one tech level to another, in our homebrew game, it costs 5 economic points to do so, which is why when you look at turn 30, you can see it, I upgraded 2 slipways and it cost me 10 EP. Got it? So what we're going to do in turn 31 it's kind of important to build as you need, so to speak, in the sense of it's important to build ships, because when you encounter somebody, heaven forbid, you encounter somebody in the Great Wide Yonder, you want to make sure that you have a fleet of ships ready to defend yourself if you need to, because if you have to start building them from day one, that puts you at a distinct disadvantage, especially when it comes to having sort of a party to meet them at the border, so to speak. And as we start to expand out, the chances of meeting somebody is going to increase. So we want to make sure that we have a steady plan to be able to build ships. So in the spring season, we can build everything that's in the spring. So you will notice that the D slipway can only build in the spring, right? That's cruisers, and we can only build them in the spring. So let's go to the shopping list, shall we? So let's zoom in here so you can see what's what. And one more. There we go. Okay, so let's just go down the list a little bit and you can see what's going on. Before I go any further, I am going to bring up, all the Y-Tech stuff's already up there. That's perfect. So let's go down. So first two things, YDKs and YBSs. You already saw the YBSs. Those are these things right here. And they are basically a base station. Very basic, not a lot of attack and defense, just very basic. Take that up another level, and we go to the YDK, or space dock. Now, this space dock allows us to be able to repair more, and it's a much hardier sort of piece of infrastructure. It has 8 attack and 16 defense. It has a command rating of 10, meaning that it can control 10 other ships in a fight, for a total of 11, like it itself and 10 other ships. And as we scroll across here, you can see that it can repair 8 points of damage. And we won't worry about SIDS right now, but that's basically how it partitions damage. And it can build or convert ships up to 2 points, meaning that if you had an ability to upgrade a ship and it costs you less than 2 points, economic points to upgrade it, you could do that at a Y dock. As we go down here, you can see that we have large auxiliary vessels. We talked about the exploration vessel, which is the YFEL. You also have an armed version of an auxiliary vessel and a troop carrier version. These are here. So the armed version only has a 1 attack factor, but again, it moves very slowly. You've got the small versions of the same thing. We have the convoys. So you have a military convoy, which is the YMC. Again, 2 attack factor, only 6 defense. It can carry up to 15 economic points. You can see that there. A normal convoy, which is what we've been building, can carry as much as 20. And then there is this commercial convoy, which you can send between you and another player. And as they travel back and forth and they show up at their destination, it costs you it says 5 here, but in the way we play the game, it costs you half that cost to build it, and you get that full cost. You get the 5 EP back when it shows up on the other side. So, for example, it costs you half to build, and you get basically a 2-to-1 return on your investment when you have it show up at another party. There's the YBG, which is the ground bases. We have some special units here, such as diplomatic, prime teams, and research and development teams. And one kind of important thing to note here with the Klingons is that we get dreadnoughts and battleships early. So, for example, at the early stage, a C3, for example, that's the W era, I can build one of those. It has a 5/7, 10 command rating, which means it can control 10 other ships. It's a big beast of a ship. So we have just introduced on year 80, we've introduced the Y-Tech, and so we can look that in about 4 years or 8 turns we'll get the C4, and that's an important ship because it's a very powerful platform when it comes to big fleet battles. But let's get down to the juicy stuff. All right, D4 battle cruisers. So this is the Y era stuff that we need to worry about. So D4s are a 4/6 ship. You can see the diplomatic version of it here is a 4/6D. And some other ships that are going to become available as we go forward. So, for example, there is an 82 survey ship, so a cruiser survey ship that'll be available. a penal ship, which again, we talked about penal ships before. There is a command version of this ship, which just has a 9 versus an 8 command rating. You can see that right there. A commando ship, which is the G designation on the corner there. Here, let me zoom in a little bit so you can see that. So the G designation is commando ship, and then the I designation is, I believe, police. Yep, so it's a police ship. Police ships, basically, we will go over police ships in another episode. Not really something we need to concern ourselves about right now, especially since the date of introduction for that is 124, and we're only at basically just a little after 80, so not to worry. Let's scroll down. Same idea for the frigates. Well, technically it's our destroyer, but the F, we have a F4 and F4J, which is basically the normal and the penal ship version. Then you have the commando ship and then the police version. And then again, the same thing when it comes to the frigate. So that's the, well, I guess E stands for escort. My apologies. The F is our frigate and the E is our escort. But it basically maps out to the same thing as frigates and destroyers for other races. Interesting to note here, I thought based on what I saw on the spreadsheet initially that we were going to get the tug, but the tug isn't introduced until year 87. So when we go back here and we look at the tugs is referring to the tug tech. So as I zoom in here for you, whoops, you can see that tug technology came in at year 80, and basically that just means that we can do a bunch of missions that are associated with tugs in this game. All right. So let's head back to this and see where we're at. So let's go back to the map and figure out what we're going to do. Let's move the map a little bit here. Scroll up. I'll zoom out just a little bit so it's a little easier to see. Boop. There we go. Okay. So based on what we see here on the map, what do you think we should do? As you can see, in the bottom portion of the map, and let me just remove the ship so you can see a little bit better. We've built a bunch of these bases. We currently have a convoy which will be finishing building its base in 81 Spring. Quick little recap, 81 Spring. Oh, you can't see that? Hold on. 81 Spring is turn 31. So that's this turn that we're doing. So turn 31 is 81 Spring. So as we look back at the map, that means that this will be completed this turn. And when we go back to introducing the ships, what do we have out here? We have, up here, we have a convoy that's been pre-positioned up in Papa 10. You can't see that. Let me scroll it up here so you can see that a little bit easier. Right, so we've positioned that ship up there so it can build something in Papa 10. Also, I have over here in the corner another transport, so we can move, for example, the convoy that's over here on this side. We can move it over here, and also there's an E1T here as well. I am more likely to move it towards this one because it also has the F3 Juliet or F3J to protect it in case, you know, something like a random raider shows up, which happens in this game. Whereas the E1T has no attack factor, only defense factor, the F3J has both attack and defense. You might hear my dog in the background. He is stretching on the couch. All right, so what do we want to do here? Over the next 10 turns, the strategy will be as follows. We're going to move this convoy over to this one in Lima 12 and start building bases along this corridor. So in Lima 12, in 14, and 16. That'll be the plan there. When it comes to the one up here, we're going to build a base here in Romeo 11 and Tango 12, kind of moving clockwise around the edge. So between this one and this one, we'll have to fill in something here, but we'll have tugs here shortly. All right, let's take a quick break from that. Hey, Loki. So Loki is my Weimaraner, as you can see here. He's my puppy. And he's licking me, telling me that he wants to. What do you want to do, buddy? Yeah. I think he wants to go outside for a pee. So while we're waiting for Loki to finish his pee, I'm going to just play the Lost Stars trailer, and I will be right back. The time of old kings is done. The kings of old who came from the stars to Kronos saw our race as a robust crop to be harvested. Their power and technology set them as gods to those early Klingons that roamed the plains of a once lush world, enslaving our ancestors as labor to harvest the land and warriors to fight their wars. They used their advanced sciences to change the very building blocks of what it is to be a Klingon. Those who stayed on the homeworld were bred as strong and subordinate manual labor. As their machines of industry stripped our planet of its natural wealth, the Klingons they took to the stars were engineered to serve as crew on their mighty warships. A schism formed and two genetic lines were created, both Klingon, but one stronger and more durable, the other smarter and more capable in combat. Over more than 500 years, Klingons spread across the galaxy as crew in the ships of these taskmasters from the stars. Planets were colonized as industrial way stations to service a never-ending war fought by these former gods against an unknown adversary. In the decades before the Great Uprising, something changed. Those who had once seemed like gods transformed into fearful kings, clutching to power in fear. Their interstellar wars wrought casualties. Worlds were burnt to ash, and the confidence with which they once ruled metamorphosized into a timid shadow of a once great glory. Kales, a common laborer, rose from the masses on Kronos to lead a rebellion against these old kings. The robust warriors captured the centers of industry, while Klingons on board ships in orbit mutinied and took control of the picket fleet that guarded the homeworld. The old kings cowered in their orbital stations, isolated from the massive fleets and resources of centuries past. Over the next several years, automated base stations and orbital manufacturing facilities were captured and retooled. Nearly a decade after the liberation of Kronos, the last base station was captured, only to find the desiccated remains of the entities we now refer to as the Old Kings. With the Old Kings now dead, Kales worked to bring Klingons together, dividing the survivors of the liberation into tribal houses that centralized specialist knowledge and skills. Tribal bonds were formed quickly with those Klingons who served in the spacefaring ships of old, now divided and tasked with the burden of understanding the technology, science, and knowledge of the Old Kings. These houses worked diligently to build the capacity for Klingons to defend themselves from enemies old or new. The warriors from Kronos, relying on their knowledge of industry, rebuilt the engines destroyed in the war and began the effort of restoring Kronos to the planet of bounty it had once been. Waning in age, Kales gathered his most loyal advisors and formed a governing council for Kronos. With representatives from all houses, these leaders would serve as the future government of the Klingon people. Taking the last battleship from the picket fleet, Kales and a valiant few took to the stars to seek out other Klingon worlds left isolated in the wake of the Old Kings. He pledged to return at a time of great need, but trusted that his brothers and sisters in arms would lead the Klingon species to honor and glory. This is the story of those Klingons of Kronos, reaching out beyond Kronos Firma to explore strange new worlds, seek out new life and civilizations, to submit, conquer, and exploit those too weak to protect themselves. Long live the Klingon Empire. Hello, everybody. I am back. Loki is well taken care of. and he will not disturb us again. This is a challenge with dogs. They run on their own schedule. Gotta love them. All right, so quick kind of recap of where we're at. We talked about a little bit of the shopping list. We talked about kind of where we're on the map, and now we're going to start plugging in some of the numbers, and you can see how this is going to work out on the spreadsheet. So here we go. Back to the... Actually, can I ask you guys a question real quick? I am a big fan of Devin Nash on Twitch, also, of course, on YouTube. And Devin Nash has this great thing where he's basically got his desktop capture, and then he's got a green screen where he's kind of sitting in the corner of that screen. And so you can see him the whole time while he's typing away and doing whatever he's doing. Would that be a better way for me to be able to do this for you? Would you prefer something like a green screen or something to that effect, and then all you're seeing basically is just me kind of transposed into the corner, as opposed to something like, and let me just get a map here, so, or instead of something like this, where you've got me as like a little corner thing, a little box in the corner with the map like this. Would you prefer basically the map and me transposed over it, or do you prefer something like this? Let me know in the comments. I really appreciate your feedback. I'm trying to make this live stream better for you and make it more entertaining, and hopefully get you interested in engaging or playing this game with us. So let's go back to the map. Actually, I've got it right up here. So, oh, a little bit too much. There we go. Okay, so let's just take away the ships for a second. So the plan here is, again, to be able to move the convoy that's finishing this base here over to the top corner, and then start building bases down there. Build the base in Papa 10, and then work our way down the side. The objective here is to get to a point where we're basically at the edge of... You can't see that? That's awesome. The objective here is to get to the edge of the map. And then that way, we're just, instead of being kind of going in all directions, we're going to be just going out. And then we can just focus on expanding the borders kind of left and right, so to speak, as opposed to going in all different directions. One of the things in this game is, in the past, folks have started off in a central location, and then they've gone out in sort of like spokes on a wheel. And they will go out, and I've done this specifically, push as fast and as hard as they can in any one direction until they bump into somebody. And then they try and draw a line in the sand, like, no, don't go any further past this. But then what ends up happening is they've kind of overextended themselves, and because this is a war game, people will fight, and you're overextended, you can't actually defend that sort of plot of land that you've got. And what ends up happening is usually you come across against another player who's a little bit more prepared, and they just push you back. So you've spent all that time and energy to try and push out to this point. Maybe you've been sacrificing sort of your economic development during that time, and by the time you encounter somebody, you're basically foobarred. They're in a better position to be able to take you out rather than the other way around, or even for you just to be able to defend that space. So the objective or the strategy for this particular game, or at least this campaign, is to be able to expand as much as possible in all directions so that we can build the economic base of the Klingon Empire, and so that the Klingons relative to other players will be more sort of situated and stable, and we're able to focus on sort of the right things in order to be able to compete and potentially push back on some of the other folks. One of the interesting strategies around this is the wormhole tech, because while we're sort of taking care of our home base, if you want to call it that, we're taking care of our home base in developing this this level of preparation. But because of the wormhole advantage this early, hopefully, by the time we start bumping into folks, we'll have reached a level of technology on the wormholes where we can travel those wormholes, get supply on the other side, and use them as conduits, channels, highways, if you want, to be able to get forces into position early and cause disruption to the other players that we'll be facing. So, for example, if we scroll down here, you'll see that we've got that wormhole in the bottom corner there, right? Oh, of course, you can't see what I'm looking at. Let me share. So you can see that we've got this wormhole down here. So one objective might be, depending on how quickly this all happens, once we have that technology, we can deploy ships down to that location easily and quickly. And we want to try and secure that location earlier rather than later, because if we don't, then either other players will secure it and cause an issue because that's a quick highway right to our capital, or it's a bit of an issue for them in the sense that we can forward deploy ships very quickly from the home world, because that's where you build everything. They can move from the home world to that location very, very quickly, allowing us to forward deploy forces, more ships faster, sort of on station. So again, going back to our focus here, we're going to build as many as three base stations from Lima 12, Lima 14, 16, and Papa 10, Romeo 11, and let me just go up here. There you can see. So Papa 10, Romeo 11, and Tango 12. And this, 1, 2, 3, will get us really close to being able to hit the edge of the galaxy. So once we're at Tango, let's see here, Romeo 11, Tango 12, we'll be able to build out one more, and then we'll be able to touch the edge. And so we'll be in good shape at that point. Again, building two hexes apart so they can support each other when defending. Let's go back to the spreadsheet here, and we can see here, so while we were just playing the trailer there, I was filling in some stuff. So as I mentioned before, oh, let me switch over the screen, stand by. As you can see here, we have the spring. There we go. We have the construction in the spring and the fall. You can see that the slipways, there are 3 E1s, E1 slipways. And so what we're going to do is we're going to upgrade those over the course of the next couple of years. So in turn 32, we're going to upgrade one. Then we're going to upgrade another. And we're going to upgrade another. Why am I separating them by 2 years? Well, that's because in this year, we're going to use this, because it costs 10 EP to build a YBS. So we're going to insert this, well, no, not comment, Tony. Dear. We're going to, there we go, note. So we're going to build this in Papa 10. Going back to our map real quick. Papa 10, if we bring our ships back, that is where there's a convoy. Whoops. Behave. You can see there is a convoy there. This might be easier to see. There's a convoy there and a tug, which is how we, or not a tug, but a transport, which is how we were able to move it there so quickly. And there's another ship, the F3J, that can help defend it while it's doing what it's doing. So as we come back here, pull up the spreadsheet in Papa 10, we're going to build a YBS. So YBS construction. And it takes 2 turns to complete, so completion date will be not 81 spring, but 82 spring. Oops. Boom. So there you've got that there. And what we're going to do here, just going to paste that. So and I'll zoom in here so it's a little easier to see. Once we're done building the station in Papa 10, we'll have moved this convoy over to here, and we'll build it in Lima 12. So once this is done, Lima 12 will build. Got it? So let's go into here. We're just going to make a little change, edit the note. So this is going to be Lima 12, YBS construction, being built in 82 spring, which means it'll be completed in 83 spring. Make sense? So now we're just going to basically hop, skip, and jump. So by the time that happens, this will be in Romeo 11. That's not what I wanted. All right. So that'll be in Romeo 11. So right here, we're going to put in, oh, actually, I'll just do this. It's easier. Copy and paste. And we'll just edit the note. Romeo 11. It'll be completed by 84 spring. Fait du sens? Excellent. Little French for you. That's probably the wealth of my French at the moment. So we built the one in Romeo 11. The previous one was in Lima Lima 12. Let's go back to the map. So Lima Lima 12 is right here. It'll move down to Lima Lima 14. So that'll be the next one we build. Romeo 11, Romeo 11. So this will be Lima Lima. Oh, dear. I just forgot what we were looking at. Lima Lima 14. Thank you very much. Big brain on Tony. Lima Lima 14, it'll be completed, being built in 84 spring. It'll be completed in 85 spring. And we'll get one more. Paste. And since Romeo 11, where are we here? Romeo 11, then Tango 12 is the next one. So Tango 12 is the next one, our build cycle. Edit the note. Whoops. Tango 12, and it will be completed in 86 spring. Right. Okay. So just as a quick note, at the very top here, I cut and paste the current economy, or the current amount of money that we're making. So we're currently making 26.5, and we've spread that across the top. And knowing that we're going to be at peace, or we're at peace right now, I have peace across the board along the top. So one thing to note, as you can see, we added the R&D piece along the R&D row here. So you can see that as of turn 31, it's still maintaining the 2 EP investment. So between that and for example, base construction in turn 31, you know, it's we're still getting to -6 here. So what we're going to do is we're going to continue to maintain this sort of economic strategy, but we know that in this turn, we will be upgrading a slipway to an E2. Now let's just take a quick look at E2s. Why is that useful? Well, E1s are a 2 attack and 2 defense. So when you see just one number there, the slash, the forward slash, is what happens when it gets crippled. So when a ship is fully able to do what it wants to do, it, in this case, has 2 attack, and then when it gets hurt, basically, it goes to 1. So 1 attack, 1 defense, 2 attack, 2 defense. Now you can see here in the E2, it has a 2 attack, 3 defense, and then when it gets crippled, it goes to 1. So that's the difference there. Also, the E1 costs 1.5 points to build, whereas the E2 costs 2. Now remember what we said about YDKs or space docks is that they can build up to a 2-point ship, meaning that once you build a Y dock, you could build E2s there. Important thing to note. Whereas the F4, by comparison, the F4 is a 2.5 point ship, meaning we could not build it there. So something to think about. All right, let's take a quick look here. So we go back to the spreadsheet, and as of this turn, we can build E2s. So this is the fall. And the reason why we're building E2s at this point, again, is to be able to have a group of ships that's able to respond in case bad things happen. Because, as we go back to the map, let me just zoom out here for a second. Boom, boom, boom. So as we start expanding out, there's a good chance that we're going to start bumping into people. And as we bump into people, it is important to have, shall we say, a response ready. Now, granted, E2s are not the biggest, baddest thing in the world, but if we have a bunch of them, they can come together and cause a little bit more hassle than just 1 or 2 big ships. One of the key lessons in this game early on has been that a lot of little ships can, as long as they're coordinated by a command ship, can do a lot more damage in the long run than one or two big ships. So spread it out over a lot of little ships. You can repair them, whereas one big ship, if it gets crippled, it costs a lot more time and energy to repair that one ship. All right, let's go back. So here we go. We are going to put 2 into this and see how that changes. See how we're now in the negative? And so we're just going to put in our note here, E2. And we're just going to copy and paste this bad boy. Yeah, paste it. Paste it. The objective here is just to try and build a very small contingent of these frigates / escorts, that's what they're being called, to be able to create something a little bit more robust. There we go. There we go. All right, so we've got a bunch of these escorts that are being built over time. Now you notice at the very bottom here at the end of the turn, our economy is just a little bit in the negative, but especially on these turns when there's 5, we're doing great. So let's go to, it's important to have a little bit in reserve, but we can anticipate that as we explore, and we'll go back to the map so you can see, as we explore, we're going to get more economic opportunity here. And so as we explore, we're going to basically get more resources, more opportunity to expand and grow, and that's going to be an important thing for us. So I can reasonably expect that my early investments at this point will translate. As you can see, it was 25 and then 26, and as we go forward, the total amount of income will increase over time. So that's good. Let's add one new thing in this. So you can see here that we can build D4s in this year. So D4s, let's just go to the list so we can see how much a D4 costs. Boom, 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 boom. Up we go. And D4 costs 6 over here. On the right-hand side, it costs 6 to build a D4. So we are going to build a D4. Why do we build D4s? Well, D4s are good sort of command ships, generally speaking, and they provide us a great opportunity to kind of have a more substantial punch in any particular fight, at least in the early stages. And they don't cost too much to build. Actually, so one of the things here, as we go back to the MSIT, so Ds are great. I want to build a C4. So once the C4 is available, we're going to start building those bad boys. But because we don't have a Dreadnought slipway, and we won't have for some time, that's a technology that needs to be discovered, and there's a long way to go for that. In order to get a Dreadnought, you need to basically build it piecemeal. Think of it like you can only build pieces this big, but the whole thing is much bigger. So you have to build little pieces at a time, put them all together, and then you can build the ship. So there is a, and I will explain it to you in another live stream where we go through this process. But I will show you how we build a C4 when we don't have a C4 slipway. It's going to be fun. It'll be a little rewarding once we get it too. So let's get back to the spreadsheet here. So we know it costs us 6 to, right? It was 6. Let's go back there. Just want to make sure it's 6. 6, yep, 6 to build that. So let's pop that in there. We're going to edit the note, and we're going to actually put this, and we're going to put in a D4, right? So D4 is 6 EP, and E2 is 2 EP. So that makes this 8. Bang. Look, see how that changed our we're in the negatives a little bit. So let's see here. We're going to copy and paste that because we can only build the Ds in the spring. So it's important to note. Now notice that popped us over 10 EP. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to defer that. And instead I'm going to build it here. Whoops. So we're going to build 2 more over the next little while. We're going to build 1 in turn 35 and 1 in turn 39, with the remainder just being these frigates. Make sense? All right. So again, just to recap, at this point, we have research and development going on for 2 specific technologies, which is supply, which you can see here, and wormholes. You can see that here. For the purposes of what we're building, we're basically building a bunch of bases, which goes back to our map. This is all about extending our supply, because up at the top here, we're running out of space. See how there's only this little chevron of highlighted area. So those 2 ships are going to reach Papa 9 shortly, and it's going to be important for there to be a supply point there. But once there is a supply point there, they can go 3 out in every direction, which will dramatically increase the area that they can check or they can explore. So when they get to the very top, they'll go up and then go clockwise and counterclockwise respectively. As they're doing that, there will be a base built here, which will, these 2 will cross each other, like the supply range will cross over each other. So if you think about it this way, 1, 2, 3 goes to Mike 10, 1, 2, 3 goes to Mike 10. They'll be able to sort of overlap one another until I can build something here in November 11. They will continue to build down the side. And why are we building down the side? Because as you can see here, these bases provide us all this area to explore in the bottom, but we need to explore to the galactic west. So that's very important. So we have enough in the south, a little bit to the east. We got to make room on the galactic west, and certainly in the north and the northeast, to be able to kind of close the gap on this top right, or northeastern, thank you, tongue-tied, to be able to close that distance there. So that's our objective. Build bases on the galactic west to move west, build on the northeast to go northeast. And that's that. So, based on what you've seen here today, we are going to be building bases to be able to explore or extend our range of supply. We're going to be building ships, as in a small fleet of basically frigates and some cruisers to be able to coordinate those frigates so that we can have some kind of response fleet ready should we encounter somebody. And I don't expect that we'll necessarily encounter anybody in this, like during turn up to turn 40, although you never know. Maybe there will be a wormhole that shows up and we will need a response. During this time, we'll also be moving our ships around. One thing to note, actually, while you're watching this, is that the other players in this game also watch this live stream. Maybe not right now, this very second, but they will be watching the replay. So for those of you who are watching, who are playing this game, take what you can, because we're sharing sharing everything we can, open book as far as it goes during this game. The one variable will be if you, the viewer, if you're not already playing this game, choose to get involved, then you can join us over at patreon.com/Lost Stars, and you can sign up to participate in the game. How? Well, at the very first incentive level, you'll be able to join us and just support the team, support the group that's building this game if you want to be able to play it in the next iteration of this game. Or if you want, you can buy, or basically you can support us to the level where you can name one of the ships. So name a ship on the map, and if you name that ship, then we can follow it as it goes through whatever it's going to do, exploring new territory, subjugating other planets and various other things. At the commander level, you can even command or take control of a task group of up to 3 ships. So for example, we're building those D4s. You can take control of a D4 and a couple of E2s, and you can lead the exploration or the interaction with one of these other players. If we bump into somebody, we can forward deploy you and your ships to be able to encounter them, and then you get to be able to make the decisions on exactly how we're going to interact. If you want to go even higher than that, as we grow in this game, you can also become a fleet commander, meaning that you can command as many as 10 ships in a fleet. And obviously, with coordination with Klingon High Command, you'll be able to move into various areas of operation and engage the enemy. And if you want to go and support us at our highest level, then you can, please, thank you very much if that's what you would like to do. But you can be able to take control of a province in the game. So, for example, you can take control over a large section of the Klingon Empire. You control the economic points for building bases or building ships. You can also give guidance to other task group commanders or fleet commanders in your area of operations, or you can control ships that are assigned to your bases and defend the Klingon Empire. Will you defend the Klingon Empire? Will you poke our neighbors? Will you stir the pot? Will you cause friction? Will you antagonize a future conflict? Who knows? But the fact that you will get involved in this game in that way will throw the dice, so to speak. It will make it more exciting, more random, more dynamic for the other players, because these other players, those of you who are watching, have played with me before, so they have a sense of how I react to things. But as you participate as either a commander of a task group, a commander or a fleet commander of up to 10 ships, or taking control of an entire province within the Klingon Empire, you will be the variable that will make things more exciting. And at the same time, you get to play and enjoy this game that we are developing. Perhaps in the future, you want to take on an entire race on your own, and that would be great if you wanted to participate more in the future. But in our baby steps and be able to support this game as we are developing and creating content for you, you can certainly go to patreon.com/Lost Stars, where you can support us in the creation of content for you. You can take control of ships in the game, and you can participate and influence the outcome of whether the Klingon Empire will stand atop the hill and rule the roost, or will we be subjugated by some dirty Federation scum. It's all up to you. Again, join us at patreon.com/Lost Stars. Link is in the description below, and you can be able to support us and participate in this game. With that said, thank you so much for... There we go. Thank you so much for participating or joining me today in our very first tactical sessions. These sessions will continue in the future as we get turns back, and I will be able to share with you what's happening, how we're progressing, and our strategic choices going forward. In fact, if you decide to participate as being a task group, fleet commander, or governor, then we will have our own private discussions on Discord, where we will talk strategy and how we want to move forward in the Klingon Empire. But until then, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next episode.